while Marla is coming up, let me just say I found a few little tidbits about each one of you that have nothing to do with work, but that have to do with how you thrive. Susan, you actually got started in advertising while working on a PhD in comparative psychology at the University of Chicago. I absolutely love that because even though you never completed your dissertation, I'd love to know what did you learn from that endeavor that has affected the way you lead?
Oh, actually, being a psychologist is great training to be in advertising. It really is. I think I use that more than any other skill that I could possibly have. I think the most important thing I learned was the importance of understanding people. And to understand people, you really sometimes have to dig a little deeper and get beyond the surface and not just assume from what they say or from what they do very overtly that you know them. You really sometimes have to dig and listen.
So, whenever I'm asked some of the most challenging questions around how can you bring this lively culture into our workplaces, people bring up how particularly difficult it is when you are in a client service business, as you are. So, it's bad enough if you're in a 24/7 media business like I am, but it's much harder when you have to be at the beck and call of clients, when there are others waiting in the wings to take the client if they don't get a response. So, first of all, is that accurate? And second, how do you deal with it? How do you manage?
I think stress is a huge problem in our business, and we make jokes about it all the time that our business, the agency business, is very stressful, but it's reached crisis proportions really. If you had an index of stress levels and you took it over time, the index would be through the roof these days. And it is client pressures, it's time pressures, and as there's been more emphasis on increasing margins, the resources aren't there. Clients are under pressure, they transfer their pressure to us. It's a huge problem. I think it's one of the biggest problems we have in the industry, and it doesn't get talked about, it doesn't get addressed, it gets joked about more than anything. And when I say part of the reason that it doesn't get talked about a lot is people don't really know what it is, and they don't know how to think about it, and not all stress is bad. In fact, stress can be very positive. In fact, a lot of people enjoy our business and thrive on the positive stress that's in the business, better known as challenge. They love challenge. I love it when people come and say, this is impossible, no one's ever solved it. The client's never been happy with work before. They love those kind of challenges if they feel like they have the skills and the resources to meet them. If they don't have that, it's just frustrating. So they leave an agency to another, or they leave the business. And then there are stresses on this tolerable stresses, things like travel that we all go through. That's getting more difficult. Technology we use to try to help with that, but technology has problems. So on the one hand, technology enables you to be more flexible, to work from anywhere. On the other hand, technology allows you to be more flexible and work from anywhere. So it's double-edged. And then there's toxic stress, which is increasing in our industry. It's abusive clients, it's psychopathic bosses. So I'm really worried. I think stress is one of the biggest problems in our industry, and we've got to deal with it.
Well, first of all, thank you for being so truthful and explicit about all these different kinds of stress. And of course, having been involved in psychology, you differentiated among the stresses, which is very helpful. Have you found anything helpful, or is it all gone?
Yeah, no, it's lots of things. I mean, the things that are very helpful are just the little everyday things. First of all, trying to provide resources for people. When you give them a big challenge, really think through, do they have the skills, the ability, the resources to meet that, and try to do that. It is, I joked about flexibility, but giving people flexibility is really important. To say, okay, well, if it's easier for you to work 3 hours a day from here and work somewhere else for the rest of the day, giving that flexibility is very important. It's very, very helpful. It sounds kind of silly in a way, but being appreciative. In our business, just for people knowing that somebody notices that you're working hard and cares about it and thanks you for it, I think appreciation sometimes is almost as important as compensation, but not exactly. That's very important.
worried about what's going to go wrong. I said, but things are going great and the clients are happy. He said, no, but I'm always worried. And it really stuck with me, that kind of pressure and the intensity of technology and what that does. And you have more people doing fewer jobs today. And we were working with a consultant at the time who asked, what do you do about that, right? And I think you have to help people learn how to cope with it, because it doesn't just affect our professional life, it affects them personally. And so we were working with a consultant. She came in, she was working with someone on our team as an executive coach, and she came in to do a client forum, and she started talking about happiness. And so I love that you were talking about happiness earlier, because she had this whole conversation with us. A lot of people say to you, I want work-life balance. But what does work-life balance mean? And she said, think of Philippe T, a tightrope walker, right? This is balance, it's rigid and it's stiff. But think about going to a center of gravity, like a surfer, and you kind of flow, right? Your life flows personal and professional, and sometimes you're busy in one area and sometimes others. And that's more of how we want people to think of it. So we started talking about happiness. We had her do a talk to our entire staff in North America. And then she came back and she said, I think I'd really like to teach this. What do you think? So we did this pilot, and we've now done it several times, of Inspiring Happiness Project. It's a 4 to 6 week class. People sign up for it. You have to take a happiness survey, because you can't be too happy or too sad. I was too happy, which I guess is a good thing. But it's really helped change people, and then we test them afterwards. And it's really had an impact on people. And again, not just professionally, but personally. And that's what people need, is they need to understand how they can have coping mechanisms. One of the things I learned as part of just this whole talk was gratitude. So now every night before I go to sleep, it's my way of just decompressing. I have my gratitude journal, and I write 3 to 5 things down that I am truly grateful for the day, and I think it makes a real difference.
So do you know Bob Roth by chance?
Yes.
Okay. So I love what he's doing with the David Lynch Foundation,
Yes.
which I think as an industry, we have an enormous opportunity to do something similar. If you're not familiar with it, it is a foundation that takes meditation and the discipline of thinking into inner city underprivileged children in schools across the country. And it really is the premise of what we're talking about here, but in youth. And I was thinking about, I believe that I'm a good person because my parents were good people, or are good people, right? And so it is something that's so fundamental, and when we all compete, but we're all leaders together, right?
Yeah.
Women leaders in the industry.
So, we have a few minutes left for questions. And who wants to go? Yes. Here? The lady in the 4th row.
Hi, my name is Bessie Chu. I'm at the University of California. But before that, I reached a point in my career where I was actually mentoring a lot of my younger coworkers. And a few weeks ago, one of them said to me, you know, if she's in the agency business, I feel like everything I do is never good enough, and talking about it is a sign of weakness. And it kind of caught me off guard because I'm used to getting advice like, oh, write the email this way. What advice do you have for mentorship in that situation? Kind of teaching people to take better care of themselves in an industry that doesn't really have that culture in the US inside.
What was the issue again? She feels like she's never...
She said, everything I do, I feel like it's not good enough, the clients are not happy, coworkers are not happy.
Yeah, I mean, we all know, and especially on the creative side, is lots of decisions seem arbitrary because it's an art as much as a science, right? I mean, we all hear, well, this scored better than that, or you do a strategy. Whose judgment gets to decide whether it's a good strategy or bad strategy? So there is what seems a bit of an arbitrariness, which can be very frustrating to people. So even when you do good work, when you do fantastic work, someone can decide it's not good enough because from where they're coming from, it wasn't what they were looking for. So that's an issue in our business, and I think what we need to encourage is do the best you can, do the very best you can. And sometimes, actually, ironically, you're doing what you think is the best, and the client or somebody doesn't think it's good enough. So you have to be very strong inside to know that you gave it your best. And I think that's the best you can do. And we need to, I think as industry leaders, we do need to address the sometimes arbitrariness of judgments about strategy work and creative and client service overall. It's an issue for us in the industry.
Thank you so much. So this is the
Good, thank you.
Well, I learned a lot from you. Thank you very much.
When's your next book coming out?